This probably isn't the video you guys expected to see next, or even really the video I expected to make, to be honest. I think with sport and sort of everything in general, you look at social media and it's all the good things, it's all sunshine and rainbows. No one really shows the bad, or the downside of sport, I guess. I think any sport that involves you performing at your, trying to perform at your best, it always kind of drags you to your lowest at times. And for me, probably the last 3-4 weeks have probably been the hardest times of my life. I'd say I've probably gone through some pretty hard times in my life. I broke my neck when I was 15. I had it fused from C2 to C5. Like, I was pretty close to being paralyzed, you could say. Had stress fractures. I broke my arm. I've always sort of used that, as like, I'm mentally stronger than everybody else. I've had to go through all this shit and it's built me. And I mean, it's pretty fair to say I probably wouldn't be the same athlete if none of that stuff happened, in a good way. Not even just a different athlete, but a different person. And I think it's pretty fair to say, me, just like everybody else, I've definitely had more bad races than good races. I've definitely had a lot more races that I've finished and crossed the finish line pretty disappointed with myself. I'd say there's probably only ever been 2 races that I've crossed the finish line and been happy with myself. Oceania Super Sprint Champs in 2024, where I came 6th, and Napier World Cup in 2025, where I came 13th. To think I've been doing this sport for almost 10 years now, and there's only 2 races I look back on, pretty frustrating in itself. I mean, I guess after my result in Osaka, I was pretty disappointed, even though it's 20th, 20th out of like 70 people, that's pretty fucking good. Something I should be proud of, and I tell my family and stuff at home, they're like, 20th is amazing, and it should be. You're not an athlete if you go into a race not wanting to win. If you don't really believe you can win, then like there's really no point in showing up. And I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to win. And I think that's where, you look at winning compared to 20th, and that's where you see the big gap. I mean, and like I said, you only see all the good times on social media. You never really see the side like right now. And so it kind of feels like when you're in this moment, you're the only one dealing with all this shit. You're the only one who's experienced all this stuff. But the more you talk about it and the more people you kind of open up to about it, you kind of you realize that everyone goes through this shit. It's part of being an athlete. We show race vlogs, all the fun stuff, and it is fun. The sport's so much fun. Life's so much fun. I think when you're having fun, that's when the results and all this stuff comes naturally. But yeah, sport is not linear. Like, you have your ups, you have your downs in performance, but also just with being happy. Like, you go through days where it's just pretty shit. You wake up, you just don't have that fire in your belly. I've definitely been struggling more than lately now. Like after every race, I've kind of been someone who recovers quite well from it. You definitely get a little bit disappointed after a bad result. You have the next few hours are pretty tough, and maybe even the next morning. But I've always been pretty good at waking up either the next day or the day after with that new fire in your belly. It's like a different perspective. All of a sudden you're so motivated to, fix the things you did wrong or just be better. I think after Osaka, I just never really got that back. I just never really woke up the next day with that fire in my belly. I know I was probably disappointed, and like I said, it doesn't always just take 24 hours to fix a feeling like that. But even the next day, it kind of it dragged on, and I didn't really know what I was thinking or what was going through my head. It was more just a clouded feeling of nothing. I didn't really have the energy to say anything. I didn't really have the energy to do anything. Travelled all the way here to Banyoles, Spain, a place where people would love to be. There's probably so many people wishing they were here right now, and to think that I'm in this sort of attitude and this sort of feeling in a place like this, makes me feel pretty guilty. But I think being so far away from home and putting so much effort into the sport, like all the money I've saved, all the hours I've put in, the early mornings, the late nights, I think that just puts an immense amount of pressure, way more pressure than if you were at home. You fail a session at home, it's fine, you wake up the next morning, but all the way out here, you start to realize, like, what if I can't? And yeah, just trying to do sessions here, and I haven't been able to complete one. Swim sessions in the pool, I I kind of just crash out and spiral out mentally, which was, kind of expected on the first swim back. Like after a big, 30-hour travel day, I wasn't expecting to feel perfect, which was a little bit annoying. I was frustrated at myself, but it didn't really end there. The next swim session, and then this morning. And I think it's probably harder when you're comparing yourself to literally some of the best athletes we have in New Zealand. Like I'm swimming against, people who are fucking good at what they do, but I couldn't even complete the set. Like I mentally gave out so quick. And even for the first time in a very long time, I wasn't able to complete a run session. I was doing a run session with Henry on Saturday, 3x3K, and I got the first one done with him, and I was fucking struggling. And then I got halfway through the second one, and I kind of mentally quit before I physically quit, and I stopped. I just watched Henry run off into the distance, and I stopped. I walked back home. And up until this morning's swim session, where I think it was probably not the turning point, but the point where I really just realized I wanted to talk to somebody about it. I went and had a chat with a couple of the coaches. Like I think they could see what was happening, and I've had people reach out to them, understanding that I was not in a good state, and I guess they probably helped me change perspective on what I'm going through. The fact that I am only 22, it's not like a make or break in the next 6 months, a year. Like I have time on my side, and they said to show this side of the sport, to make a video about it. And this video doesn't really have a happy ending. It's not a motivational video. It's more just, this is what happens in high performance sport when you're trying to compete for that 1%. This is sometimes what happens.